All right. Still not working. Well, it should be working. You can hear me now, I think. But the video isn't working. Let's see if I can figure out why the video is not working. There we go. And there we go. And the relaxing background music. All right. So, welcome to the stream, everybody. Let's see. I usually set up beforehand, but today, yeah, the screen wasn't working. Today, I was coming in hot, setting up the laptop and everything right at the last second. So, we are good now. Make sure I did everything I need to do here. All right. Today, Jack is not refactoring day. And I'll tell you why. All right. Because I already did a lot of that. I'm sure I could do more, and I tried to do more. I tried to channel my inner Jason and do some more, but you know, I added summaries to everything, even when it was kind of a silly summary. Shows the button that moves the item down. I created more smaller methods like these, moving them out of the larger methods. So now up here we've just got the one method that just does this, and it's like, oh, well, that's easy. Display the UID, display help, display add items, display items, show full inspector, and set dirty. Boom, super easy to understand. Display the help. I have got help now, so if you click the instructions, it gives you some instructions about what the heck this is. It seems to work well. So the next step is actually to make it do stuff now. The setup is done, as in you can set stuff up, but you can't do stuff yet. It doesn't do anything. There's an ad on my Streamlabs OBS for Earn More with Pillar. Land brand deals to earn revenue promoting products from thousands of brands. Start earning. Would you guys be upset if I told you to buy some face cream for your faces and then suddenly I made $5? That'd be cool. I'd tell you to buy some face cream for $5. There's a lot of things I'd tell you to buy if somebody would pay me $5, and I'd do it like 100 times, make $500. But you would know, and I know you would know, that I was not being serious if I were to tell you to buy face cream, because your face is silky smooth already. You don't need face cream. You're gorgeous. All right, so we got the setup done. We got our loot box items. We got our instructions telling folks about what a loot box item is, what that means. When we got our loot boxes that have stuff people will get now, we need to build the thing that actually populates a loot box, and do so in such a way that it would work with any inventory system, not just the module's inventory system, but that also works with the inventory system from the modules. So basically building it in a way that works with any system and then just hooking it up with the inventory system. Thank you, Mike. Yep. There'll be giant logos. I mean, in a way, I guess there's Infinity PBR and Magic Big Games logos, so that's something. But it's, you know, I'm not getting paid directly for indirectly, I suppose. But yeah, put up a logo every once in a while. Brought to you by the Jack in the Box. Go get some Jack in the Box. Yep. All right, and then you can hear me crack open a Coke or a beer, and like have a nice glass, ice in the glass, filling up thing like at the movies. Hear some popcorn popping, all that stuff. All right, so we've got the demo loot box. We have our demo items in the inventory module. We're probably gonna have to build some more visual inventories when we get to the rest here. Let's see. Demo loot quest items, demo loot gold. Yeah, so we're definitely gonna have to copy some stuff when we get to the inventory portion of that. But for now, we don't need to do that. I'm gonna open a window. It's warm in here. Hold on. Whenever I start streaming, I get all hot and bothered because I think partly because I've got my headphones on and I'm talking. All right. So what do we need to do? We need a new scene. So let's create that. Let's see. Loot box demo. Let's open that up. We need in this scene create a 3D object terrain. Never like how the terrain starts on the side here. So -250, -250 to bring it more in the middle, and give it a material. So we'll create. Actually, let's delete that. Let us do instead, save some time, go to the inventory module, and copy the scene. That'll be up there. Call it loot box demo. So this is going to be using the inventory module scene. Folder, we'll call this demo items and demo scene, and we'll move the demo scene into the demo scene, move these demo items into the demo items, and the demo scene, we'll load that up, don't save, and there we go. So now we have the demo scene from the inventory module. This will be a good start. Let's just press play, see what it does. I'm not able to move around. Well, that part works. I thought I was able to move around. Huh. Wow. Oh, control to toggle player movement. There we go. Okay. Alright, so there we go. We can move around. Open treasure box, etc. Alright. So that's a good start. So we are going to create a new yeah, I think I'm gonna do where's my yeah, take the instructions and move this down. And we'll say loot box info. And we're going to default this to say when the scene starts, loot box will be populated and details of results will be shown here. Alright, so that's cool. And for the box, let's make it a nice color so it's more obvious. Alright. Hey, Tactical Gamer Pro, how are you? Welcome back. So what I think I want to do is, you know, these two open treasure box and small box are great examples of boxes that we can fill with our stuff here. So goblin boss and enemy one. So I'm going to rename treasure box to be goblin boss and enemy small box to be level 1 enemy. So we're going to call this goblin boss, and we'll call this one level 1 enemy. So we'll say this is going to be loot goblin boss. It's a shame it doesn't. Can I make it go down? I can't. Loot goblin boss, and then we'll call this one loot level 1 enemy. So that way you're essentially, you know, we're mimicking what happens when you pick up or loot something. Yeah, that's the idea. And of course you can change that to anything you want in your project. It can be a bag, it can be a dresser, it can be a cardboard box, it could be a basket on the back of somebody's bike, it can be someone's car trunk, anything you want. A vase, a coin purse, the top of a bed, anything like that could be a loot box. All right. And then I will also say I create a new empty object here, and we're going to call this loot box or demo goblin boss and demo level 1 enemy. All right, and these are going to have whatever script we have on them. So we're going to create that script now. Actually, let me create it here. Create a folder, demo scripts, and we will call this script lootbox demo enemy. And can't add it yet. We have to wait. I was impatient. Now we can add it. We'll add it to each. And what will the lootbox demo enemy have on it? Well, let's find out. The first thing it'll have on it is a loot box. So let's say public loot box, and yes, let's put this in the right namespace. Using or namespace infinity PBR.lootbox modules demo. Yeah. And did I put, what namespace did I put the loot box in? That's an interesting question. Just infinity PBR. Let's do this. Using infinity PBR.modules.lootbox. Lootbox. What am I missing here? Okay, let's call it loot. Seems to be confusing if I call this loot box and that loot box, so we'll call it loot instead. Where's the error here? Cannot convert loot box items to target type. All that. Why not? Well, why can't it? Hey, Paul, how are you? Not sure what this means. Just do that instead. Looks like I can just do that instead. Let's see if I broke anything. Type and instance loot block parent items could not be found. Why not? Okay. Loot box items cannot be found. Why not? Because you also need to be .modules.loot. Okay, so now let's see if I broke anything. Create new ones, game modules, create loot box items, select gold, add large gold pile, small, medium, and small. All right. Create game modules, box, select loot box items, add that, add gold, medium, add gold, large, small. Change this. That seems to work. All right. Delete forced items. Delete loot box items. All right. Don't think I broke anything. I changed, yeah, who knows, I think I finally got all the namespaces correct, but for a while it was just chasing errors until I figured out what was what. Interestingly, I'm not using these anymore, so I can delete these leftover bits. Delete this. Delete this. Delete that. That. Okay. All right. This. All right. So where was I? Oh yes, our enemies. So they each have a loot box So of course we're going to take our loot boxes, put them on the appropriate Goblin Boss loot box, and then the level 1 loot box. So in this case, they're both going to need an inventory as well. I've forgotten how to set up the inventory system. That's okay, because I have ways of reminding myself, including the documentation, of course. Just looking through here to see what's what. Okay, demo data. Trying to see what happens when you click. Box manager. Okay. That's right. Box manager. So I'm just going to copy these to these new ones. Copy these. Okay. So we need a box manager. And for both of these, I'm going to remove these components. I guess it would behoove me to do this too. Clicked. Got clicked, okay. So now those will got clicked on those. And yeah, so that's good. And all right, so what are we doing with our loot boxes? These are scriptable objects. So I'm wondering, do I need a common script? Like this is box manager, and do I need a loot box manager on every script instead of this demo enemy? I could call this loot box manager, and here we have the loot box, and then we have methods like private void awake, of course, and we have methods like private void spawn loot, and maybe add an awake we do spawn loot. If header required, and then header options, then here we can be like public bool spawn on awake true, and so that instead we can say if not spawn on awake, then return, otherwise spawn loot. And we can say if no loot box, then return. Otherwise, we then spawn the loot. So spawn loot. I mean, that should technically work. We do want these spawning, I suppose, at awake. That makes sense. Oops. play. Spawn loot, spawn loot. Great. All right, and create empty object. I'm gonna call this loot box demo controller, and this is gonna have to have a new script. So I'm gonna move this loot box manager outside the demo because it's no longer a demo script. It's now a regular script. But I am gonna create a script called loot box demo controller. And this is gonna like manage this box of text and stuff for the demo. Nothing that's needed for the actual module, just for the demo itself. And so on this we need UI text. So we'll say public text, info text, and just make this, whoops, wrong one, import Unity Engine text, okay. And we're also going to need public game object, or maybe we'll do public loot box manager array loot box managers, and zoom in namespace infinity PBR.modules.demo, and that's a reminder that this loot box manager is no longer a demo, it's just modules. I'm going to move these over to the left here for easy access. All right. By the way, today was the day I was hoping to get over 4,000 watch hours, and I missed it. I missed it. Not by much, though. Not by much. Let's see. By only 66 hours. Only 66 hours. Oh well. It should happen in the next couple days. That'll be nice. That's the goal right now. And then there'll be another goal after that, of course. The goals never actually end. You just get a different one. It's like a quest in an RPG. It never actually ends. You just go on a new quest. Okay, so this is Spine Loop. This is going to keep track of things and whatnot. And actually, maybe instead of loot box manager, we'll just have game object, and then we'll call this demo objects, because then we can more easily access all the bits on it. We're gonna do goblin boss. It's the first one. Level 1 enemy as the second one, and then add in our text up here. Right here, and we'll call it loot box info text. Okay, and then put this up here. All right. What's next? Oh, I must be tired. I had some really good Indian food for dinner. It was my birthday and I wanted Indian food, and it was spicy and I ate too much. So I went for a walk before this, and now I'm tired because of food coma, probably, or something like that. All right, next step in this process is to, on awake, we spawn loot. So let's do the actual spawning of the loot. Yeah, hold on, message. Yep, okay. It was a friend. Friends are good. All right. So what do we do when we spawn the loot? We've got a loot box attached to these right here. This is, of course, a scriptable object. Therefore, we will need an important bit here. Thinking out loud. I got close, William. It's because of the bread. I mean, I had naan, but it was a lot of the naan. I had so much bread. It was the bread. The problem is the naan wasn't gonna last. You know, like I thought to myself, well, this won't be good tomorrow, so I had to eat that, and the rest will be good tomorrow. And it got spicier. I feel like as the more I ate it. When I went to a takeout, a restaurant, got takeout, and it's a local restaurant, and they asked me, how spicy do you want? I said spicy. Hello, Aaron. I said spicy, and they did not disappoint. They did not disappoint. So what I'm thinking here is on the controller, you know, I need to keep a track of all the loot boxes. So public list loot box and equals new list loot box. There we go. And I did this wrong. Loot boxes. And we will import that. We don't need this. And so important. This is something you'll need in your game controller to keep a reference to all the loot box scriptable objects, since they cannot be... Hold on, a brother's calling me. I will be right back. All right, I'm back. Corey, thanks, by the way. Bell rung, liked, subscribed. Thank you for the reminders while I was talking to my brother. I think you did not miss the Humble Bundle. I thought it got extended. Oh, look at that. You got 13 more days. You got 13 more days. And so I'm going to give you a special link just for you and everybody else. Don't switch. For you and everybody else, a special link to go to the Humble Bundle and buy it with my affiliate code. If you want. If it's something you're going to buy. Buy it with my affiliate code. And if I can find it. Jeez. How far back is it? Here it is. I'm going to say this right here. I'm going to say, hey, did you see the FPS Humble Bundle got extended for 2 weeks? There you go. 13 more days. So now, Corey, you've got 13 more days to think about it before actually missing out. So, there you go. Yeah, so it got extended. I'm no longer, I don't think, in the top. No, people beat me. But for a while, oh look, Connect. It's a publisher. Everyone does matter. But some people historically have seemed to matter less than others in modern society, at least. So, let's see. Where the heck were we before my brother rudely interrupted me by calling me on the phone? Oh yeah, I was saying that this needs to be populated with your scriptable objects. All your loot boxes, because we need a reference to these. And so I think I was writing, yes, I was writing this. Scriptable objects, since they cannot be serialized, you'll need to relink the reference either when your data loads or at another appropriate time. Really does not matter as long as it's before you need to do stuff with it. Now the other thing is where's the enemy? Loot box manager. Needs to not have a reference to the loot box, but rather, make this private actually, rather a reference to a string loot box UID. Because the UID is what you're going to save. This is what you save and load from the from your game controller on awake or another appropriate time. So this will load into that, and what we're going to do is add here, we're going to say public loot box demo controller, controller, just call it controller. This would be You know, you guys can tell me what you think. I've been doing it for a little while, and soon you will know it all too. And I'm still have to think about it, so I'm not that amazing. What I'm thinking is, I want this to be as easy as possible to use. So it's one thing you could just say, oh, essentially add this to your controller, and that totally would work. But it might make sense to separate this out. Instead of a demo control, have a thing called loot boxes. That seems better. I'm going to try that. If you're watching it and you're thinking, why the hell were you doing that? Then let me know. I'm going to create a new script here. I'm going to call this loot boxes. And we'll load this up. And we'll make this a namespace infinity pbr.modules.loot. And move this up here. Okay, and then the note on this one, the instructions on this is going to be add this script to your project, perhaps on your game controller or another object, even a new object, perhaps named loot boxes. This script will hold a reference to all of your loot box scriptable objects, since they cannot be serialized and must be relinked when the scene loads, or at another appropriate time. Appropriate. Okay. All right. And then on this, we're going to have our list here. So we will take that, and then the controller will just be the controller, no big deal there. This will be our loot boxes, and we're going to do a static reference, as we've done in the past with other things, and I'm going to copy it because the code I always forget the code. Where's one that I can reference here? Scene data has one, I believe. Class thing data, or it does not. It doesn't. Active scene has one. There we go. Public static, blah blah. Okay. So if I go back here, what we need to do, I'm going to type it, because typing helps you remember. Always remember that. Copy pasting is bad because it doesn't teach your muscle memory as typing does. So even though I could copy paste this, this is something that I need to remember. So I'm instead going to type it out. Public static in the wrong spot. I'm going to type it out in the right spot. Oops. Ah, gosh. Okay. Public static loot boxes. Loot boxes. Oh, that's going to cause a conflict. What to do? That doesn't work either. So loot boxes, and let's call this boxes. Okay, and then on awake, we need to do this code. All right, and it's going to be private void awake. If loot boxes does not equal this, then or equals null, then loot boxes equals this. If loot boxes does not equal this, then destroy this .game object. Is that the right code? Did I type it correctly. Hey, else if. Else if. I just missed the else. So this essentially basically does on awake, if loot boxes, which is this static reference here. Why is this underlined? If this, okay, yeah. If this has not been assigned, it's going to assign it to this script. If it already has been assigned, there can be only one. It's like Highlander. Hey, Jason, it's like a Highlander. There can be only one, so destroy this one. That's all this is doing. And the reason why we want that is so that once you throw this on your scene, into your scene rather, and create empty, loot boxes, and add our component to loot boxes and populate our loot boxes here and here. Once that's done, you can go to your box loot box managers, and you don't have to do this. It's already going to be done for you. But there's going to be using static infinity PBR modules loot box loot boxes, and that means that we can write a method that links the loot box ID to our brand spanking new loot box. So we're going to say public loot box, and this is going to return get loot box. And so we'll create this method. No. Wait a minute. Am I doing this right? Let's see. Private void get loot box. Oh, loot box equals that, and private loot box, make that underscore designated as private. So get loot box, and this is going to return a loot box, and we're going to say if no loot box, then we're going to say link loot box. So if no loot box, then we're going to return, we'll return link loot. No, we'll just say link loot box. And then we're going to say return loot box. Yes, that's what we're going to do. And we will do our link loot box, which is going to go to say loot boxes dot get loot box, and oh hey Jason, I'm about to do something you really want to teach me how to make better. I'm pretty sure. Get loot box, and we're going to pull in the loot box UID, and we're going to say that underscore loot box equals that. And you know what? I'm going to say return this, and we're going to make this a loot box, and we're just going to return return underscore loot box. Yes, that's what we're going to do. And the thing that Jason is going to tell me how to do better one day is this part where I say for each loot box in boxes, if box.uid equals loot box UID, return box, and then down here return default. I know Highlander was I was a kid when that was the movies or the show. I don't even remember which one it was, but It wasn't Sean Connery, or maybe Sean Connery was one of them, but yeah, I was totally into that. I thought that was super cool. There can be only one. So this is basically saying, give me the UID, and I'm going to find from this list the UID. Yep. So, great candidate for it. Repositories and custom collection types, huh? You don't say. Say, what are you doing for the next half hour? In this case, probably just do get lootbox string ID. All right, so let me learn something here, and show you all that I don't know everything. I don't know all this stuff, but let's see. Get lootbox string ID and boxes. So boxes dot first or default x arrow thing x dot id dot equals loot box UID. First or default x. I think we briefly went over this once before, but then I forgot it all. X UID equals lootbox UID. First or default. Okay, so essentially this is so I am going to move this up here, by the way, but for now I'm just saying this is going to return from this list the first one it finds or default. So essentially it's doing this, find the first one, return it or default. X, so just whatever X is. I guess X is the items, the objects inside boxes. So X. So I can be more explicit if I want to be more explicit, I suppose. Box. Yeah, so box, boxes, box. Box UID equals the string we are passing in. Return first or default. So okay, so what we could do then is here, if I'm reading this correctly, lootbox manager, we would do, oops, we would do, oh gosh, if I could type, public lootbox equals loot boxes dot boxes. Oh, can't do it like that. Wait, your meeting's in 4 hours? That would be, yeah, that would be 9 a.m. your time. You've got plenty of time to inhale coffee. Let's see. I think I'm missing something here in regards to, is there a better way of calling this? Because clearly it seems to work just fine if I well, I guess I do need to do get loopbox this method. So yeah, that never mind. Undo, take it back. Public oh, I know, I understand now. I think this is what Jason is talking about. There you go. So instead of doing the method with the curly brackets, this is, if my understanding of this at least, is it's a shorter way. It's saying, hey, we're only doing one line essentially, and since there's only one line, we can use whatever this is called to say, hey, this is the method, this is what it does, that's it. Hello, Lord Miko. Or in Jason's story, a good day's rest. Considering he is often up at the weirdest hours. I guess you're just up now. I guess so. That's just the way it is. And so now I'm going to move this up here. And I am also going to put a note here, since this is for public consumption. Get loot box, given a UID of a loot box. We'll return that from the list loot boxes if the UID is found, or will return null if not found. Remember to populate the list, and yeah, static reference to this script, and a list of all your loot box scriptable objects. And I am going to put a header here, header required. I'm also going to put check loot boxes content, and friendly reminder, if loot or boxes.count equals 0, then or actually we'll do it this way, is greater than 0, then return. Otherwise, a friendly reminder, debug.log warning, there are no loot box scriptable objects in this list. Don't forget to add all your loot box scriptable objects to this list and include, yeah, well, if this is running, then it's already in the scene. All right. So if loot boxes does not equal null is the same as if loot boxes. So this part. So saying if not loot boxes is the same thing. Code power. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Any bugs? Shouldn't be. All right, so our loot boxes is here. We've got those populated. That section is required. And now on loot box manager, we don't need a controller. We do need the loot box ID. And we've got this public way of getting it. So just calling loot box will get it. Putting it into the private loot box. Option spawn and awake. That is perfect. Spawn loot will do the spawning of the loot. And now we just need to do something I've been wanting to do. And I want to learn something new again. So we want to put in these. We have to put in the loot box ID. Now it's not hard to get the loot box ID. You go to your loot boxes and it's right here. This is the loot box ID, but I can't click it. So I want a button that says copy UID. That's what I want to build next. I want to change this script to have a button that says copy UID. That should be easy. I'm sure there's a built-in method for copying things to the clipboard. So let's see if we can do that. Loot boxes. So if we, loot box is editors. Loot box editor, that's what we need. And then we have display UID. So that's what we're going to modify. And look, I updated my script a bit to make this label gray so that I didn't have to do this content color gray, content color white. I did that last night too. So now I just have to call label gray to do a gray text. So that's fun. So we're going to say start row and end row. And I think I'll put it on the left. We'll say if button, and this is going to be copy UID and a width of say 50. Then we're going to copy the UID. Let's see how that button looks first. Correct. This I don't think uses the logging system. The logging system is for Legend of the Stones, and this is the module system, which does not have the logging system. This needs to be maybe 80. And now the question is, do I make this a darker button? I think it's fine to make it that. All right, so let's see. Unity 3D editor script copy to clipboard. Let's see. Somebody asked this question before. That is bright. All right. Ooh, system copy buffer, huh? Use this to make copy and paste work for your own applications. System copy buffer captures any text that's selected on the machine. Alright, this example is probably more complicated than it actually has to be. I don't know if this is actually what I'm looking for. That French game dev. So this, okay. This string, this is it. It's going to be editor GUI utility probably. And that. That should do it. Let's test it, and then I want to do one other thing. I want to push myself a little bit tonight, because while it's cool that it's copies and we can test it, oh, not that. You might be guessing where I'm going with this. I did indeed copy it. It would be even cooler to have this say copied and then turn back to copy UID in like 5 seconds. So that will require, if I am thinking about it correctly, private enumerator flash button. Just say flash button, and we will give it a button, or yeah, we'll just say, how would we do that actually? How would we do that? Well, one way we could do it, I suppose, if we had a private up here, we could say private copied UID, or copied UID equals false. And we're going to look for a system copy buffer. Okay. And then we could say set that to be true. And then if, yeah, we can say GUI or content background color. Background color is going to be if that's true, then we'll say color.green, otherwise color.white. And we have to reset our oh, and label gray, this will reset for us, so we don't actually have to reset it. And then same deal here. If that, then we'll say copied, otherwise that. So now it should change once we click it. Oh, I do have to move back. Okay. So that's cool, but it doesn't change back after 5 seconds. It will change back after, I think after I reload the script actually, because it's not saving that. Oh, no, it didn't change back. Maybe it'll change here. Yeah, so every time you reload it, well, so it's not the worst. Actually, that works. It doesn't need to change back because it copied it once. And when you go back, it can... Okay, but Jason is helping me out. You can call the editor coroutine utility. I did not know that existed. Editor coroutine utility. Start coroutine. Wrong button. I do that a lot. I always click Discord when I mean to click Writer. And I should just be doing this, but I don't. Okay. So let's see. Editor coroutine utility dot start coroutine. All right. Let's see. Editor coroutine utility. Let's see, is this using a special thing or something? Unity 3D, that. Unless this is only in certain versions of Unity. Coroutine utility. Did I spell it wrong? Might not be available in this version of Unity, actually. These documents are different. Did they change their docs? Unity editor coroutines editor namespace. I almost did it again. Unity.editor coroutines editor. Hello, Warped Space. Welcome to the stream. Oh, you need a package manager for this. Thanks, Tactical Gamer Pro. That's probably why this looks funny. And of course, it does say packages. See, that's annoying to me. I understand that as a publisher of an asset, I could like force a dependency. But that's just annoying. All right. All right, so we'll ignore that. We won't do the cool functionality where it turns back after 5 seconds. I could do a thing where I just keep track of an int. I could say that this equals 0, and it's an int, and copied URL, we'll say copied URL equals, say, I don't know, 100, and then display GUI, we'll just say, and we'll just do it right here, copied UID minus equals 1. Yeah, and we can say, we can even say, how could I put this, equals mathf.clamp. Copied between 0 and copied UID that minus 1. All right, and then if copied UID is greater than 0, and copied UID is greater than 0, then it would work. And that will kind of work. It's not perfect because in the editor it doesn't actually update every single second. It's not like runtime, but it would technically turn green, and then at some point it will turn white again. I don't know how many points. There it is. So it's something. 6 a.m. in Cape Town. That's far away from here. So that's something. It's better than nothing. It's similar functionality. It's not an exact science as to how many seconds it will turn back, but it will turn back. So that's a workaround. We did it. Now you can copy your UID, and so we did that. Then we go in here, and then we can click here and say paste, and we'll go to our Goblin Boss, copy that, go to Goblin Boss, paste. Perfect. That was easy. Editor application.update. Let's see. Callback. Really? Alright. That's good to know. That'll come in handy one day, I bet. Would that take up inordinate extra resources, too many resources? Would that make things run slowly if you were doing that, Aaron? Do you know? That would be my only concern. There. Well, that's good. I'm happy about that button. This makes me happy. Yeah. If I don't move my mouse, it won't update. Oh, it did update. I thought it wouldn't update. I have not heard of Animbool. There is another way to do it. Animbool. Really? I see. So disable it when you're not using it. That makes sense. Huh. That's cool. I don't want to fade this element, but that's something to keep in my back pocket. Yeah. Like, it would be neat maybe if you add this and then, oh, no, delete or undo. You say X and it would fade out. That's kind of cool, but it's cool. I like that though. Okay, that makes sense too. One day I'll have to play with that. That sounds like something I'd really enjoy doing. I'll do that one day. Alright, so now we have our UIDs in our loot box manager. And so we can now get the loot box. But what happens if somebody forgets to add the UID? And they try to get the UID, that would be a problem. So a few things. on awake. Well, on spawn loot, yeah, that spawn loot's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So the bool just turns on and off, back and forth, over and over. Alright, so this is going to just check for a UID. Essentially, I want to just make sure that people have the UID. Returns false and gives an editor error if the UID is not populated, as that is required. Since UID is basically required when we do get loot box, we just want to make sure that there's a UID. And actually, I can put this somewhere else. I can put this in the link to loot box, because that's where it's really needed. It's not needed here. It's needed here. Okay, so that should be good there. And now we're at spawn loot, I believe. Loot boxes, leave that there. Okay. Check loot box contents. Okay, so magic, by the way, magic time for the spy and the loot. So this is the point at which, you know, we've got box manager here. That's the inventory manager, and it's ready to take in loot. Traditionally, as part of the inventory, when this was the inventory demo, it's now the loot box demo, but it started out as the inventory demo. One of these buttons gets clicked, and we call the box manager got clicked. Very appropriately named. Hey, look, I have a to-do that I probably don't have to to-do anymore. And this will set up available items, set other panel, and set up other panel. Does all this stuff. We're not going to be doing all this stuff. We're going to be doing some stuff. This is what we're going to be doing. Populate item list. I'm surprised. Is this, where is this description? Oh, okay. It's in the demo. Yeah, so this is a demo. So I'm actually going to, I guess I can continue using this demo. This is a demo script. So this is basically saying, yeah, I guess here, this points out that this is a demo. We're using a button to represent the box in your game. Likely the player will operate. We'll open this box in some other method. So feel free to take from the script, but this is meant to be a demo script. So populate item list is what we're basically going to be doing. And we're going to do that from the loot box manager instead. So loot box manager will essentially be picking the items and then adding them to the list here. Yep. Excuse me. Whoa. How could I forget something I never knew? View tool windows to do? You think I've actually clicked any of these up here? Actually, honestly, I don't think I have clicked any of these up here. I don't even know if my eyes have ever even looked up here. View tool windows to do. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow, indeed. So I guess it finds something called bugs too. Interesting. Interesting. I had no idea. I also didn't know I had a to-do left in there. Well, there you go. And yeah, I feel almost embarrassed to say I really don't think I've looked through these menus. And I've been using Rider for like 1.5 years. I'm a little embarrassed to say it. But this is part of my personality, to be clear. Once you get to know me, you'll realize that I have a tendency to not look behind the scenes, not dig deep into things, and do only what I need to do to get done what I want to get done. And sometimes I'll go through bouts where I want to learn something new. Like tonight, I feel like learning new stuff. I'm in the mood for that for some reason. But oftentimes I just say, nope, let me just get done what I need to get done. Interesting. Who uses menus? I know, Rider is one of those things I know I'm not using nearly all that it has to offer, but I still enjoy using it and I still find value in it. So box manager, spawn loot. All right, so let's walk through this in our heads with my voice. So not in our heads, out loud. Let's walk through this out loud. We have our loot boxes. We'll take the goblin level 1 enemy. So there's up to 5 things that this will spawn. There's 2 potential items here, 3 here. It's supposed to go down the list, one at a time, starting with this group, then this group. It's going to do the top one. Now, none of these are forced. So instead, it's going to use... I'm going to make this one forced so that we have some options here. So it's going to go through the list. First one, it's going not forced, so it's going to sample this part and this part of the curve here. And so the second one's 50% chance of actually spawning. Regardless of what happens with that second one, it's then going to come here. It's going to do this one because it's forced. So it's going to do that as long as it can fit in the inventory. And that's something that that we're going to have to put a debug log in there, because not everyone's going to use the inventory. So I want to put a special area that says, hey, this is where you put your code if you're trying to check to see if something fits. And then it'll go through this. Now, again, it's going to be using the curve. And in this one, I'm going to bring this curve down just a little bit so that there's a 94% chance that this one gets spawned and a 30% chance, give or take, that or in this case, that one gets spawned. So up to 5 things might actually get spawned from this loot box. That's how it's going to go down, top to bottom. You haven't even covered what I think is the most valuable writer feature, live templates. Live templates, huh? Well, how about this? Everyone watching, if you want to know what writer live templates are, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, smash that subscribe button, tap the bell icon, share it with your friends, and then say, yes, I want to know what live templates are. Or just say, yes, I want to know what live templates are. And then we can help Jason pass the time before his meeting in 3.5 hours. Oh, you already know what they are. I have no idea what they are. I was spending some of that time looking around to see if I see any buttons that say live templates, but I didn't. And while you all do that... Really? Now I'm getting curious as to what live templates are. Spawn loot. So, the spawn loot code should live on lootbox. So what we're going to do, let's see if this works first. I'm going to get a new list, or just let's say list item, spawned items equals new, and it's actually going to be equals lootbox dot spawn items. Yes. All right. And on lootbox, we're going to create that. So this will return a list of newly spawned item objects from this lootbox. So this is going to basically go through that method we just walked through verbally. And it's going to create a new list. It's not going to consider whether something can fit or not. It's just going to return back to here, this list, and then from this list, we're going to do something with it. Do something with the list. That's all it's going to do. So all we care about now is give us a list of items, whether or not these spawned. And at the process, create a prefix, create a suffix, all that stuff. Do that, give us a list, and then we'll do something with it. But you don't need to care about what we're going to do. You just give us that damn list. And do it. Do it now. Live templates are the things that pop up in the suggestions to generate a... Oh. Yeah, okay. I guess I use those. Like if I do a for int, but I guess I don't. It doesn't come up. I've seen Jason and Jason doing it in their videos. I think where it comes up and it shows the whole. If I just do this, it would just show up the whole thing. Mine never does that. I'm not sure why. But we're going to go through the items settings.count, I++, and live templates are a bit too much to cover in 200 character snippets. Ah, okay. Well, maybe we can do a special thing one day on your channel where you can teach me something. We should set up some on your channel where you teach people stuff. I think people would like that, and you've got a lot of subscribers, and then you can come back to my channel and teach me stuff too, and we can just do that because people like that, and I would like that too, because then I'd learn something, and I like learning new things most of the time, some of the time, every once in a while, if I'm in the mood. So first we want to go, each one of these is one item settings. So there's 2 in this loot box. So we're gonna go through each one. And there's an upshot, huh? Oh, interesting. So it's like saying, hey, I write this bit of code over and over, so I'll just make a template so that it can always just type a few things and then fill in the blank. If I'm getting that properly. I don't think I need to do a number. I could probably do a for each. For each loot box or item settings, loot box item settings, items settings, or items setting, or we'll just call it items in items settings. And then for each one, what will we do? If I create a new list here, if I say list items spawned items equals new list items. If I say spawn items from items settings and pass in spawned items, and spawned items. If I do this, and then I return spawned items, item, not item. Will this return include whatever I add to it here? Does that make sense? So if I then say spawned items dot add new item, would that return correctly here? I think it would, right? Because I'm passing the object. Unless this is saying it's a new list. Interesting. It makes sense. I mean, the syntax of how to code it doesn't make sense. Yes, but oh, that's actually not the question. This is going to do more. It's going to actually figure out which items. Oh, good. I am. I just. We're on the same page. So this is going to go through. It's going to do a for each. Inventory or loot box items. I think items in items. So let's actually call this items setting. Settings. Settings. So dot items to spawn, and items to spawn is actually loot box items to spawn, item to spawn item. Okay, this is going to potentially spawn an item, and I want it to just add to this list. I want it to add to this list from this or another method. Factory functions. You were mentioning this the other day. Should I do a pre-read? Factory functions. C#. I can't type. They don't pay me to type. Whoa, that's brighter. Yeah, we can dig into that. Let's see. So bright. All right, so loot box item to spawn has, it's basically this horizontal list here. It has the items object that owns the item prefix and suffix. So this is the parent of these three singular things. In this case, it's either going to be a selected item, random, or no selected. And then this could probably be refactored, I think, but just some bools onto whether it's no or random. And if it's not, then if it's not no and not random, then these would be populated. And essentially, the script at this point is going to take that item and decide whether or not it's going to spawn it. It's going to do the math, basically say, hey, there's a 94% chance. Okay, well, let's roll the dice. 94% chance hits. Great. Spawn it. Do the logic. If it's random, choose a random one. And once you have that, spit it out into this list of spawned items. Yeah. So usually, I mean, one way without answering my question, I could just put this spawned items way up here and just make it a private, clear it out. But I was just wondering if I create it here and pass it into other methods, would it continue populating so that when I return here, everything that gets populated in the middle is populated. Have the code automatically know how to convert an item to spawn to an item. I'm listening. Essentially, that's what I'm doing, but I'm gathering that there's a better architectural way of setting that up. Go into your items to spawn and we can add some weird code. Okay. I'm all down for weird code. Public void weird code. Weird coding. I can't spell. It would, as list is a reference, but there is the performance cost. Okay, that's good to know though. Weird Code, brought to you by Jason. Ooh, that's a new podcast. Welcome to Weird Code with Jason Story. I'm Andrew Slater. Today's episode, we're going to talk about factory. Factory. What was the other word? Love that. I'm looking. Factory functions. But first, a word from our sponsor. Implicit. Okay, this is definitely some new stuff here. Okay, public static implicit. Never heard of that keyword. Operator. Item. Loot box item to spawn item. Oh, to spawn. Is this what it was expecting to do? It just started doing this stuff. Let's see. Item, loot box item to spawn. Item to spawn. That part's good. Item to spawn. Dot item. Now I'm guessing that part was not. Alright, so now, any place that would traditionally ask for an item will magically just take a loot box item to spawn and convert it from one to the other in line with you. Any place that would traditionally ask for an item, just take a loot box item and convert it from one to the other for you. Okay, but let me follow this thread because, and hear me out, I'm not necessarily going to return, well, I'm going to return an item, but I need to create that item first. So this is going to have a bare item, but it might get a prefix or a suffix added to it. So, if I'm understanding this implicit operator correctly, I could say item to spawn, create item, and then do private void or private item, create item. And it will return that, and we'll say item, new item, and then return new item. equals new item. All right. Aha. Now is this? Okay, but now how would I use this? That's the other. So in my loot box here, do I just say item.item? Haha! See, I can be taught. I can be taught and figure some things out on my own after I get pointed in the right direction. But now, so the other question is, how do I use it? And I know we're dealing with a bit of the lag, the streaming lag, probably 20-30 seconds, but it's a static item loot box. So if I say item to spawn, is that so? Would that be something like item, this item equals item? Oh, I guess I'll put it down here. Item, this type of thing. Spawned items dot add range item to spawn. Wait a minute. Add range. Not sure what I'm. Oh. Okay, so I aim it to here. Items. Okay. Okay. Spawn items dot add range. So adding a range, so adding another list to this list. Item settings dot items to spawn. Item settings. Items to spawn. I know, where'd my stuff go? Okay, so loot box item settings has items to spawn, but that's a list of loot box items to spawn, not a list of items. So I can't add this because it's a different type, right? Yes. Yes. That's what this is supposed to do. Yeah, that part makes sense. Either I'm typing something wrong or it's not doing that where it converts it or realizes it. Probably me. It's probably me. Cannot convert loot box items spawn to item. List of loot box items to spawn. It should convert to. What if I do public list item items to spawn items to spawn? No, didn't work there either. Huh. Well, I gotta say, I'm not sure what to do. If I say, let me just try it one at a time. What if I just randomly, just here, just for shits and giggles, say item test item equals items to spawn 0. So that part works. When I do it one at a time, it seems to work. But a list of item test items equals items to spawn doesn't seem to work. Because it says it can't convert the list to the list. So it works on an individual item, doesn't seem to work on the entire list. Which I think is... I mean, I am curious to see if it's supposed to work. But I suppose that means that we're saying spawned items.add item. That would work. Okay, let me read what you wrote. Let's do this in steps. First, var list new list items to spawn for each var setting. Okay, let me do that up here. Loot box items to spawn. For each var setting in loot box items settings. Oops. Settings. Okay, so this works. Let me just read through this bit of code. So one question, this is a side question. I've always explicitly created the type list. Does that matter? When I see people say var list, I'm always wondering if there's a reason to be explicit or if there's a reason to use just var instead of being explicit. Obviously, this will cast that as its type, so it's the same, but I was just wondering, always wondering about that. So that's a side question. Okay, so the list is a new list of loot box items to spawn for each setting in item settings. List add range setting items to spawn. And that's basically all the items to spawn. That's like, so it's essentially kind of doing this all in this. Okay. I wonder. Oh, interesting. So that breaks it. If I say it's a list item, then it breaks it. Huh. I wouldn't have expected that. I guess I don't really know what's happening behind the scenes on this one, but I would have thought that this part, the new list loot box item to spawn, would be enough to make this immutable, or if that's the word to use. Oh, okay, so var is easier to read, smaller, has no real side effects or consequences, and the compiler will do it for you. And in this case, it does appear that not doing bar breaks this code entirely, and that's what was happening down here. Interesting. Okay, so if I'm hold on, what is that? Oh, sprinklers outside. Suddenly heard a noise and I was got the window open, so that's why. Var in short means infer the type or figure it out. But in our case, we are actually doing some magic, of course. Magic, big games, duh. We're doing some magic to auto-change types so it doesn't know what we really want, so it needs more help. Yeah, I was just, I would not have guessed that it would work. I would have guessed that this would right here set the type, but I guess it doesn't. Oh, wait. Ignore everything I just said. Ignore everything I've been saying for the past, like, minute and a half. I was using the wrong one. I copied the wrong one. This must be this. I copied list item instead. So, I feel a little silly there, but I'm admitting what I did wrong. And that's half the battle. Okay, so here's the top list, just item. Not sure what you mean there, but let's see. And then this is just setting, and I'm setting this add range. Wait a minute. For each var setting, I'm retyping stuff. I get that. Item settings list.add range settings.items to spawn cast item collection item settings items to spawn saying items to spawn. So the only difference between these two is that we move the cast up. Here we are adding to the list items to spawn, but now we're adding that cast as an item because we have a list of item. Okay. Okay. So move that. So if I would restate what this is doing, so I'm going to talk it out so that it can solidify in the brain what it's doing, and I'm going to even comment. Create an empty item list. And for each of the loot box items settings on attached to this loot box, and we will say this is essentially for this item's loot box items settings object, get a list of the items to spawn attached to it, cast them as item, and add that list to the main list using add range. And note loot box item to spawn.cs will run a method which determines which item is returned, i.e. check that out and then return the list. One last step, okay? Go into the class and make, finally after all, you can simply the above line to list I like your way you think, Jack. You always call out the names of things, making them more explicit. I like that. Items to spawn. Is that okay to say items to spawn? But I guess items to spawn is here, so I'm gonna say you're right. Final items to spawn. Is that just too verbose? I mean, I guess we are trying to get the final items to spawn. We can say yeah, you're probably right. Spawn items list. Okay. All right, let me see what you're saying on this next step. Go to the loot box item settings. Wait. So yes, there's a loot box items settings class. Make an enumerable item items. Okay, let me see if I follow this. I'm going to do it first and then try to figure out why I did it. Which, by the way, that's not a good life lesson. Do not do something first and then later try to figure out why you did it. If you don't know why you're going to do it, stop and think before you do it. Life lesson. The more you know. All right, so we're going to say public enumerable item items to spawn dot cast item, and I need to use that. Enjoy the movie, Aaron. So this is basically, what is enumerable? That's just a list that can be rearranged. Is that right? Well, actually, I guess I could look under the hood, can't I? Oh, that doesn't help me. Nor does that. All right. I think this is just a list that can be rearranged. Let's try to find out what happens. Here goes nothing. Hold my beer. Good thing I don't like beer, because then I can't say hold my beer. Of course, if I did like beer, I might drink it first, and then I'd have no beer to hold. But yeah. So this is basically saying a list of item called items. If I call that, return items to spawn, which is itself a list, cast as item. And that will return, I guess, this. So this is this. If I call item on this, it's going to call itself, then item to spawn. Does this matter what this is called? So this could be anything. Okay, I see. So this is this class. So when item is called on this class, this is just the name. I'm giving a temporary name to this class, this instance of the class, or whatever. I don't know the right verbiage to use, but giving a name to that instance and then saying on this instance, which is this, call this and return that, which is an item. So anytime another script refers to this object as an item rather than as a loot box item to spawn, if it's referred to as an item, it will return this rather than returning this. Is that a way of saying it? So in this case, I'm saying, hey, I have a list of items. So items to spawn, cast all of those as item. And it's saying, oh, I'm casting as an item? Okay, instead of returning this, I'm going to return, first going to take this, then transform it, and return this instead for each one. I see. Interesting. So okay. Brain's working. And Jack, you started this conversation by saying refactoring day in all caps. So you were actually yelling refactoring day. You were quite excited about it, I have to say. And so while still no, today's not that, clearly Jason Story, the master educator, has taught me something that I feel like I need to replicate like a dozen times in the next couple days in order to really confirm I understand it. Now, I don't think there's a way, I don't know if any of my other code could make use of this, but it might. So I'll have to think about that because this is very interesting. And that is all made possible by this implicit operator bit, I'm guessing. So now list add range can be simpler because the settings now know how to return items directly. You can now do list add range settings.items. So here we're saying spawn items list.add range setting.items. Oh, interesting. Interesting. This should fix itself. Those errors should go away. Indeed. Interesting. You're playing a game that changed my cast effort. Maybe the game was just so exciting that you started out by yelling. Because I'm really excited, so I'm still yelling. But yeah, it's okay. You're allowed to yell in all caps here. Thank you, Jason, by the way, in case I don't say that enough. This is interesting. For each setting in item settings, do that. Loot box spawn items. I wonder. That would mean that could I just say public list item spawned items spawn items. So I could just say spawned items, but could I take it one step further? Is it possible to add this bit but up here on this? Which scripts are meant for the user to create? Because I think you use your own namespace instead of something like namespace, your app namespace. So currently none of the scripts that we've been looking at right now are meant for the user to create. It's right here with this do something with the list is where the user would take over. Oh, sorry, just Jason, I totally saw Jack's reply, but I didn't see your reply. So no, back to where we did the list add range can be simpler because settings now knows how to return lines directly. Now you can do list add range size. Okay, we can do one more thing and go a little crazier with that spawn items. If we do something fun with it. Spawn items. So in my head, what I'm thinking what we're going to do is make it so just simply one line does this. Well, this gets boiled down into one line. Because if for let's be explicit, channel my inner Jack here and be more explicit. For each one of these now knows how to call items, it makes sense. I just found cast as items. So trying to get my head around. This is a list. We're casting it as items here. I have a list. Can I cast this list as items? So if I want to cast this list as an item, and it's definitely not an item, then I need to create an implicit operator here as well, if I'm thinking about it correctly. And item can I do list item? That's not right. That's not it. Because this is not it. This other one worked because there was a list of this turning into a list of this. I have a list of items from each one of these. So I mean, I sent okay. I guess part of me is getting confused probably oh, look at this. Part of me is getting confused because this works and seems so small and tight already. But the other part of me is thinking, okay, so I can call this from another thing from here and just say spawned items. And that's pretty cool. And I mean, I can cut out most, even this, really. How would I, let's see, how would I do that? If this items cast, that as items, this is saying, hey, implicit cast, this, do that. If I'm calling this as an item, then return that. So if I'm calling this as a list of items, return that. Where's that cast code? We have cast somewhere. Cast. So that dot cast list item. Can't do that. Can't do that. As list item. Can't do that. Ooh, it can do that. So if I call this, all right, talking through the same language as I did before. If I were to call this class as a loot box item settings, I would return all this. But hey, if I'm actually saying, hey, no, give me that, but it's a list item. Items, loot box item settings is now a list item. I'm like, oh, it is? It's a list item? Okay, return this. So basically you can do var all items equals settings select many okay, so this would work. Very happy with myself for figuring that one out, with your help, of course. Stand on the shoulders of giants, but working through that was neat. I was surprised that this would work, but it worked, which is fun. But what is this? I figured you were very quiet, and I thought you were letting me do that, and I appreciate that, by the way. I appreciate the that style of education. But what is this select many code you talk about? Just gonna write it here. Var all items equals settings.select many. I've never heard of that before. Is that only for IEnumerables? X.items select many. And again, this X is just a variable. It's not a special thing. It could be anything. So you can say item setting. For each item setting, items. Select many. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what that means. That part is a little Greek to me, but all right. So this is essentially saying all items from item settings. So from this list, select many. You said it was, you just aggregate all the child settings. So every item in the list, I suppose. And so to do that, it would be kind of up here, public list item, all items. I guess I would just return this then. No. So that would work. So now when I call spawned items, loopbox spawned items is going to say for each item setting, return it as item. Next items. And items is going to return a list of final items from each of those. Yeah. So I did that here. Is that, are you saying that I could do it up here? Public list item, all items equals that. I'm not sure what this means. Add list dot to list item. I just say to list there because it knows it's a list of items. All right, cannot access non-static field items settings in a static context. Oh. Ah. So then I don't even need this method at all, is what you're saying. So for all of those following at home, if you remember, I started by having 2 methods I was writing, and now I have 0. I have 0 methods now. I went from 2 to 0. And then this doesn't need it, so now I just say spawned items. Yeah, this is so I'm quiet because I'm a little well, I'm impressed is the reality is I'm impressed with how slim it got. Like, I know that this, of course, this is hiding other code. I know that, but even when we look at that other code is still extremely small. It's essentially, now I know this is where the code's gonna get big. I mean, this is really where the meat happens. I'm sure there's ways of making that, whatever I'm gonna write though, I'm sure there's ways of making that smaller too. But essentially, we literally have 1, 2, 3 lines that do so much and dig through these and return a list. And that's just impressive. I mean, it baffles my mind. I know I know there's a lot more that I don't know than what I do know when it comes to this stuff, and it's just one of those things that when I see something new like this, I get a little speechless and then don't know what to say. But I am going to get some more water. My glass is empty, and I'm going to close this window. I'll be right back. I'm back. So that was a nice side quest. Yes, just like my computer. And as I've mentioned, my preference and why I think I like Macs is to not know what's going on under the hood. I do want to know though, where is my night shift settings? App usage, notifications, pickups, downtime, app limits, communication. I don't think that is right. I'm looking for shift. Night shift options. There we go. Night shift options. Oh, interesting. Maybe aha, maybe I'm not using night shift. Maybe I'm using this application. Alright, I'll figure it out another time. Huh. Trying to disable this effect just for Writer, because I do it for Unity. Alright, well. I think I disable it. Yeah, I disable it for Unity. We all just saw it shift. But, anyways, sorry. That's the general principles of clean coding. It's about making things user-facing and friendly. That's why I want to do a big refactor. because it doesn't just make it look nicer. It's true. It lowers the cognitive load and makes reading each line simpler because you only have to think at one fidelity. Like, you know that settings don't really have items. They have different type, but when you look at the all items, you don't need to know what's happening. It's true. So the code should read at each level as a list of intent. It should explain what you want the code to do and not how it does it. So now each line is in the correct home. So at each fidelity, it says what it means. It means what it says. Yeah. That's a philosophy I can get behind for sure. And I am aware that I have a lot to learn with it, but yeah. So now we have to get into the weeds about what the script actually does, because it actually does a couple things. And we might need to change some of this pretty code we just made. And that's because not every item will make it into the list. Some won't. So where does that happen? When we go through this, on loopbox items to spawn, this is where we create the item. This will create the item object from the potentials, random, none, fixed, item, prefix, suffix, in these settings. Okay. I know it's great. It's just really great. You know, I know Star Trek's just a TV show, but whenever we watch that show, I'm sure it was convenient for the writers to not have to show people actually coding. And when somebody was like in the holodeck, they're kind of just like, oh, move that over there and put this here. They're essentially coding, but they're doing it at such a high level that all the stuff underneath that is the real coding is being done by the computer. So all you have to say is, get me a list of items. And the computer just says, okay, let me figure that out. And then says, okay, got it. It doesn't matter what the underlying part is. But yeah, that was a weird analogy. All right, so this is going to get a list of the item. Now, if this is being called, technically it's going to get one of these. So first it's going to create a new item. And then so we're going to say new item.item. Oh, no, it's not. It's not going to create a new item. It's going to say new item equals get item clone. And get item clone is going to return a clone of whatever item. Now, it could be the explicit item here, but if we have random item, then we're going to do something differently. So okay, how about this? New item will be random item, then get random item, and otherwise it's going to be, item.clone. There's a built-in cloning method for that. Oh, one quick thing, huh? So before we dive into this, all right, return new item. All right. Oh, never mind. Okay. The delay is real. Oop, I almost spilled water. Ah, okay. I understand. So this part should be pretty simple, and I might come back and refactor this because I might be able to make it better. I already did a little bit right here automatically, which was nice for myself to see myself do that. So get random item is going to say, okay, oh shit. So if I'm gonna get a random item, I need to get it from this. This has loot box items, and loot box items has a list of has this. So this is the list of items I need to get a random one from. Alright, let me reason through this. So item to spawn does not know about that other stuff. Maybe it should. So item settings has a list of items to spawn. Loot box item is a collection of parent items and the items as their children. Loot box to spawn is going to have an items, but what it also needs to have is a parent items. Parent items. Parent items. This needs to be .modules.loot as well. So because I'm gonna pull from the parent items, return parent items dot items random dot range 0 through parent items dot count dot clone. And this part always gets me. Okay, Unity engine dot. Okay. Okay. So in general, this pattern is one that you want to get to have removing. There's a flow of control issue. Every time you have an item have a reference to its parent, you can't ever talk about or use it in isolation without its parents. They're bound together. True. True, true. Huh. So I don't currently have this populated, and I don't want to populate it at runtime. I want to populate in the editor. So it's really a loot box, a loot box item thing. So the loot box item editor. This is really a kind of a temporary thing, because wait, this isn't right. See, now I'm getting myself confused. It's not in items editor. That's not where it is. It's in loot box editor. These, when I'm looking at a loot box, each one of these needs to know what list it's in. Actually, I don't need to do a temporary thing. I can just delete these and add them again. That's not the end of the world. So really I'm looking for the add method. Add loot box items. Add loot. So this loot box items. No. It's on display items. Display item settings. Item spawner. Item spawn header. Add new item. So this is where I want to add that. So new item dot parent items equals item settings dot parent. This is confusing me right here. This items. Do I need that? Well, when it adds a new one, it adds it random. What do I do here? I'm actually thinking that create item might not need to live or might not want to live on items to spawn. Because all the important data, like if I remove this for now, I'll just comment it out temporarily. This is the important data just for this group right here. But if I have random items, then I don't even know what the parent item is going to be. It could be any of the parent items that I've added as potential parent items to this. So if that's the case, then when I do this part here, which I do love this code and I don't want to get rid of it, what I really want to do is do this create item in here. Because really this has the spawn chance. This has all the methods I use to figure out the chances of being spawned, etc. I'm not going to delete this code though. But what I am going to do is comment it out. And then go here and say okay, wait a minute. Maybe I could still make use of this code. So instead of just what I'm thinking, Jason, is instead of calling this right away, add one more step that does two things. And this is two birds, one stone here. Poor birds. code is about intent. Yes. So go to the top level script, the one with the custom editor, and let's look at what question we were asking the system. Okay, let's walk through it. Let's do this. Let's do it, Rockapella. If any of you remember that show. Okay. Spawned items. What we're trying to do, and I'll put it here. Oops. Get a list of all item objects that this loot box spawns. Note, not all objects that it could potentially spawn will always spawn. That's the important step here, is we want to get the list, you know, this could potentially spawn, let me delete this one, 5 items, if I delete this random one I added. This could potentially spawn 5 items, but there's a chance that it won't. Ooh, you want to come on a call here? I don't need to see talk through the code, but philosophically I want to explain how the approach. All right, let's do this. Let's see. I will be right back. I'm going to send Jason a link to a Zoom. Be right back. Night, Brian. Actually hear you right now. Let me see. Can you talk now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. You're quieter than me, I think.
Okay, right.
No, I think it's my fault. I think
Yeah,
my
I'm
volume was down because
max
I
on
got
my
this back.
end here.
Yeah, I got turned that off. And now here we are. Look, everybody.
Cool.
Globalization at its finest.
I have to mute the actual stream,
Oh
so I'm not
gosh.
hearing myself back too.
In order to hear you, I have to listen to you through the stream. So I get myself on like a split-second delay.
Oh, that's not fun.
It's not. I need to work on that.
Right, yeah. So I just wanted to jump on quickly because you're getting into what I call a top-down, bottom-up problem, which is you've got a really big thing where you've got multiple moving parts and you're trying to connect them together, and it can start to get a bit confusing, which is relatable. It's very hard to figure out how does all these things connect. And so the problem I'm noticing is that you've got too much knowledge of this system, and what happens when that happens is you try to solve it by starting off. It's like you're trying to buy some new electronic for the kitchen, and the first thing you do is like go down to the cellar and start looking at the cables, going, right, so we have these cables that have this much power. It's like that's got nothing to do with what you're way down here when your actual problem's way up here. And so if you step all the way back and go, right, you've got some editor that does some stuff that makes some decisions about randomness, but at the end of the day there is a button that basically says get me some items. There's some conditional logic in there. One of it might be randomize or pick whatever, but it might just be give me all of the items for all you know. Like there could be no configurations of randomness at all. It could be all items all of the time, 100% guaranteed. And so from a solving of a solution perspective, your very first function should just be something that says get me all the items, or get items that you have decided upon, and then populate my whatever I want to do with that. And that's step one. And then to test that, just return all the items. And that's done. It works, fully functional. Step two, you want to make something which takes in the items and then makes a decision. So it takes in any, it's not specific items. It just says, if I give you a list of items, do some stuff, figure stuff out, return back some of those items. And now your filtering set of stuff can just be a filter that you basically say, given some items, pass it through your filter, come out the other end with less items. And as a first test, have a filter that always returns all of them. Returns true, everything's valid, whatever. And now you've got that working. The next step is to go into that filter and say, right, if random is turned on, then apply this rule to the items that come in. And so you start to build it downwards, where every one of these conditional extra logic you have gets added in, and the code's never broken. It just internally changes how it works. And that's what we were doing with the item casting thing. You start at the top and say, give me items. What does that mean? I don't know. And then internally that, oh, well, actually, I'm not really an item. I'm an item to spawn. So cast an item. And so you push the complexity down, so the top level is always simpler. So I guess my point is, you've got these, again, 4 or 5 layers deep of item sets with stuff and lists and parents and whatever. All you need to care about is right at the top, go, get me items that have been chosen by this loot configurator. And it'll just return something. And then maybe print them out or put them on a list or spawn them on the ground, whatever you want to do, prove that that works. And then step 2 is do the same thing, give it some place that filters, and the filter to start with does nothing. And then the next filter is give me 10 items of, skip the first 5, give me 10, and just pick some random rule and keep iterating that way. And you'll suddenly find you're not stuck solving the like multi-layered aggregate problem. You're solving the how do I get things? How do I get less things? How do I get sorted things? How do I aggregate the things I have into a new things? And you only ever have to solve one small piece of the puzzle.
Okay, I get that. So the first thing you reminded me is that I should always have a option just to spit everything out without the which is actually helpful, because last night I was thinking, okay, on my editor script, I kind of want a test button that just says do it and give me a printout of what you might do, so you can kind of visualize constantly spawning items and figuring out what would be put out there. And I think that as a developer, that would be helpful. So that is that. So yeah, I think what I do want to apply the filter before any items are created, because some don't need to be created. So that would be, save resources.
Yeah.
What I was thinking is, spawned items is just saying select this many. On the items settings.
I guess what I'm getting at though
Yeah.
is that there's this prototypical template. It's just the class called item, right? I assume that's the one that's just this is an item. This is a hypothetical item one could make, right? That's what that is, I think.
Yes.
And so theoretically, the filter should be after some consideration, I have a list of type called item. I don't know where I
Yeah.
got it from, but somebody gave it to me. Now, with that, what do I do with it? So your
Yeah.
first test should be make a function which takes in type list item and then does the continuation from there and doesn't consider where it comes from. And once you have that working, we can revisit how to give a smaller list of item than the one you currently have.
Okay. Technically, I've got that working here. We haven't tested it, but this should give all 5 items from that list. Well, actually, I mean, it doesn't actually yet necessarily because this has to do the create item. But once this create item spits out any old random item, but that's where I was getting at because create item here is too far down. It really has to be here. This is where it has to be created. This is where the chance of it, whether it actually returns an item, is decided, and it will be where, if it's random, the randomization is resolved. So all that has to be done at this level, which is just really one step above, right?
Well, that seems to be very low down. Like again, the only level currently that really matters is the one that has the custom editor, the very top, the button that you press, right? Everything beyond that point, like we can do some fancy magic to pass things into things and sort stuff out and then get things down to the lower levels. But the first level is like it's like a TV remote control. The first level of interaction is the big shiny red button on the remote. Like yes, internal pieces move and infrared fires somewhere, but the bit that matters is the big shiny button that someone presses. So start from that philosophy down. So start from
Sorry. Go
ahead. I was just gonna say which part is that. So like literally, forgetting about all the details. Start conceptually now as a user. I do a thing that should result in stuff happening, and like go from literally 1 to 2 to 3. And at the point where it's supposed to go deeper, if you need to, just print a debug log saying in this place I would have spawned 5 items. At least that way prove that much of the journey works.
Okay. I think and I realized that we have you're probably seeing the lag. It was just 30 seconds or so. So I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. I have been looking at the screen.
All right, so now you're seeing the screen.
Yes.
There we go. So this is the big red button. This is the big red button. Cool. This is the one that says, I'm going to give it a list, and then we're going to do something with that list. So this is the big red button.
Okay.
And
so I guess the first thing I would do then, so it's because we've got this thing called lootbox.spawned items. Now, here's where you're right. The very first thing we want to say is theoretically we don't want to get all items from the loot box. We want to effectively ask it to generate a number of items or to pick items, right? So the first thing I would do here is I would make another function on lootbox and just call it pick me some items. Lootbox, give you some stuff. And then that way we have a dedicated place to say this function call doesn't guarantee all the items or spawned items. It guarantees to do something that results in items, which might even be 0. That at least means you have a method you're calling where all of the possible magic happens.
That was this right here. That would be spawned items.
True, but that's a list of items, and what we want to do is make a function which could theoretically later take in some conditional rules, where you could say, lootbox, give me all your items, but use this conditional set of rules. Only where this, or this. So a method gives you that much power, right? Because then you could say, give me all items in lootbox, and then pass in but only the red ones,
Interesting. Okay.
Because the thing is, what you've got here is what's called a property. And the problem with a property is implicitly stuff that exists on this object. This is just a general clean code design principle. There's a good idea to have some rules of design and philosophy of what you're doing. And whenever you have something that's exposed like dot thing, the implication is this is a read-only collection of things that do exist, that do represent this object. If you have a method, which has the round brackets and the curly brackets specifically, it's saying either generate or create or do. It's called command query separation. It means you as a person using the code can differentiate between this is a statement of fact about this versus this is a request I'm making of it that results in stuff. So if I had a loot box and I said lootbox.items, the implication there is these are the items in the loot box. If I said lootbox.generate items, I'm saying, oh, the loot box will do something with its items internally that will result in having picked some items. And then of those items, I could say generate items or get items based on the filter where blah, blah, blah. So do you see how there's like it's the same thing, but philosophically it splits the rules so that there's a consistency between them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think where I'm getting stuck in is the filter is, I mean, these options, whether you select no prefix, these are essentially the logic that creates the final item. I don't have, in my head, I don't have a thought that you would filter by give me only swords in this loot box. Now,
well, I guess
certainly
from my perspective, that doesn't matter, right? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like none of these, because to me, I don't care at all what filter, because what a filter is to me is I have items, I put them into a box, and I empty it out, and only a certain number of those items dropped out the other end. That filter could be literally anything. And so I don't worry about the details. I worry about at some point later, we're going to make a thing. Like, for example, I like those lists of filtered settings, wherever they are, because again, I'm not fully understanding the relationship. You would end up having something like loot box settings, and you would pass in a list of items. So you would say items with these settings, rummage through your filter and spit out the ones that have passed the test effectively. You know, that way you could pass it through multiple sets of filters. You could pass it through the one that has the prefix checks, the one that has the random checks, the one that has the suffix checks, the one that passes this. You know what I mean? If you split the relationship between something is items, something generates items, something when given items makes up its mind, keeps other items out, you can interchangeably Lego block those together at different relationships. So from a design perspective, treat it as this is a thing with stuff and this is a stuff picker. And then you can interchange which stuff from which boxes get passed through which pickers, and then that becomes a different question.
I'm following you about 30%, I think.
Well, that's why I'm saying like this stuff is I'm fully aware this is complicated stuff, and that's why I start from the top down. Is I say if your first filter is all of the things, we don't need to go into the minutiae of how you do the magic, interacting, whatever. Once we get that working, we can then say right, but this isn't real though. A real one would be giving me only the ones with X prefix. That's when we can then look at that problem and start to put that in, right? So rather than trying to solve all the architecture at once, let's start with the presumption that the filter is a pass all, and then we'll do that, and then we'll like work inwards from there.
Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, that pass all is essentially I'm spawn essentially saying create item, give me just the item clone.
So let me just actually probably a good question to actually figure out what the exact relationship we've got here. So you have so this thing here that's got the custom inspector is specifically called a what? What's this class with the custom editor?
This is a loot box.
Okay, so that is a loot box. And a loot box has a set of these chunked sections with your filters in it. Yes. What are you calling the thing with all the filters in it?
Each one of these is a loot box item settings.
Okay, settings. And so the bit that confuses me is the settings have items.
It's essentially a okay. Taking one step further back, these are loot box items, and each one of these is simply a list of potential items. This one, 3 different piles of gold. In this one, there's
right. Okay, so the items don't. So it's not an existing set of items you're filtering against. It is a set of rules for things that can generate items.
Yes, in a way, this is a filter itself. Because you can choose any of the items here and then add any of the objects to the list, but you're saying, oh, I don't want everything from inventory demo items. I only want these ones.
Gotcha.
And then,
okay,
yeah, each one of these then will have any number of those loot box items, and the settings comes into play basically here, where you have the settings about the spawn chances, the settings about the prefix suffix chances, and essentially the individual potential items, which I'm calling items to spawn, that you have here. So I can add a new one that's random, a random one, or a specific medium one. And I can add any number of those, and it will just try to spawn all of those using the settings as rules.
Okay, so I guess then at this fidelity, like you actually don't need anything else at the moment. Like if we were to open this script, we should be able to say, pressing a button on me should come out with some list of stuff. So
Yeah.
if we do that, we can then say, ask each one of these, give me your stuff, then give me your stuff, then give me your stuff, and then aggregate the list and pass it out.
Yeah.
So I'd say then, yeah, sorry, go
on. So that's why I was thinking, as a basic test, at create item, well, and it wouldn't be on the item to spawn. It would be on the item settings. But we could do it here just to see it working scenario. We could just, yeah. So actually, let me just do it like this. If we say return,
if you're saying the settings has the if you're saying the settings has the rules, here's how you solve that problem that you've currently been having with parents and children. It may sound weird, but you pass it in to the child. You don't do it through like a property. You would say, get me items, and then inside of the get method takes in the thing that has the decision making power. So to put it another way, the parent of this object, the item settings, I think, yeah, the item settings. Which values of this do you need to pass to the other object for it to make the decision which ones to pick? Is it random? Is that just the part?
Yeah, so if it's random, then it needs to know the parent it's going to have. And then that parent has the list of the potential children it could be. It's also possible for the parent itself to be random. So before I do this, before I ask this to create item, I need to find out if it's going to create. I need to roll these dice essentially, and if it, skip it if it's not going to create. But if it's going to create, I need to say, if this is random, then choose a parent. And once it has a parent, whether I've chosen one or not, then I can pass that parent into the create item method here. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking of, but the item settings still has to do the check on whether it's going to be spawned, and then and just to add one level of complexity there, the chances of whether it's going to be spawned technically starts here, right? I can change this and it changes the chances, but a user of this module, including myself for Legend of the Stones, might augment these chances with some other thing. So there has to be a specific method where any user can add additional code for their own project to augment these chances.
Okay. Yeah, I admit from a contract perspective, this is a bit confusing. Because this is kind of why I say from a design from intent perspective, is that I now fully understand what you want to do, but I think, like even yourself, right? You're saying I have things, I want to pick random things. And you could reasonably explain that to somebody as a set of steps, but the steps you will have to go through the code to get there requires a bit of bouncing back and forth through different layers. And that's why, from an application layer perspective, it usually makes sense to kind of try to keep as close to the English as you can. So in your case, the English version of this is if click on loot box, go to item picker, ask each one if there are items, or each one give me items. And internally, each one of those says, given possible items I could make, apply rules, result in some items. And then in the apply rules section, that would have something in there which says, based on the possible items in my set and the weights, given these possible items, filter them out so only these ones are there, and if the dice roll fails, don't do it. So all of the dice roll and stuff, while it is literally the core part of the whole system, it's actually so far buried down that like you're already like we can get so much of that done without ever even touching the single dice roll, because what matters is all of those questions that results in it. Because as you said, if theoretically someone could put in their own rules at that level, then the rules actually don't matter. They are just one possible variation of a rule providing solution, you know? So I try to think of it from the top level as what questions am I asking the system? And so I would start with, in an ideal world where I never used this asset before and I know nothing about it, I would say loot box that give me stuff, and something would happen, and I may or may not have stuff. And then after that, we would say inside of that give me stuff, based on previous configurations, it would have resulted in X, Y, or Z. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making this more confusing for you. Than
I think it's not more confusing. It's a little less confusing than before. In a way, I feel like I need to, like, one of those make it work and then make it better scenarios. Because I know the first question, we have the big red button. The big red button is loot box spawn items. That's the big red button. And the first question that big red button has to ask is, for every one, are you going to spawn? Like, did you hit that number? That's the first question. Everything else doesn't matter. If the answer is no, then move on to the next one. Go down this list.
Okay. Well, then just for my sanity, then just do one thing. So to me, like I said, spawn items reads to me as like the output of something. So just do one line just above that, just above line 36, and just write lootbox.generate items. Or generate. Just lootbox.generate will even do. Yeah, and just round bracket semicolon. And yeah, and just you can just create the function in the other class, and it doesn't do anything. We'll just leave it blank for now. But philosophically speaking, now we've done what's called command query separation. So if you go as a user, go back to the other big red button again, you could say, I have at some point called generate on a loot box, and if lootbox.itemCount equals 0, it spat out nothing. If lootbox.spawned items is greater than 0, there are items that have resulted in this generation. Get me the, you know what I mean? Now it's like there's a linguistic flow of my intent, what was the outcome, result in the outcome, you know? So I know even though it doesn't do anything yet, the point is there's now a place to put the bit which does the generation, followed by the bit which gives me the stuff that comes out of that generation.
Yeah, I think I'm following you. Yeah. We'll see tomorrow. Because it's almost midnight here and I have to wake up for work, so I do have to go to bed. But we'll see tomorrow if I've remembered everything while asleep, which I'll probably remember most.
Sleep is when things normally coalesce.
Exactly. This is the perfect time. I just need to go to bed fast. And then, so, I mean, really, I know how to make this work. In my own way of doing things, which is probably more verbose than it needs to be, and definitely not as clean, I would say. But these other methods that we did, all this the IEnumerable stuff and certainly this implicit operator stuff, this still blows my mind, and that's why I'm like, when I came here and it's like, oh shoot, if I move it up, then I
Yeah, I
won't
will
need
say
this
don't be
code.
precious. If you have to delete the code, delete the code. It's not
I
about
know, I know.
so that's entirely fine. My worry is less about that. Like obviously, to me, syntactic sugar is all pretty and nice and whatever. But what the whole reason why all of this I even do any of this stuff is because it's about clarity of intent, and I really do mean that when I say the biggest problem that people have with code is they know too much code. Is that
Mm,
they like all of the magic words get component and transform and editor tool stuff and all of this, and because of that every time you mentally try to solve a problem your brain goes straight to, well, I'll have to get the transform and the vectors and I'll put the vector in the thing and I'll get the array and I'll do it. It's like, whoa, 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 what are you actually doing? Oh, I want to get the stuff and put it in a box. Okay, right, get stuff and create something called box and say box.put get stuff. Like if you think about it less in terms of the code that makes it work and more in terms of the questions and answers you have, you're generating like empty pockets to put the answers to those questions. If controller.push button TV.turn on, cool, that works now. What does that mean? I don't know. TV turn on might play an animator or start a rendering thing or connect to some system. What does button press mean? I don't know. Maybe I fire an event or I activate a singleton. That's the details of how it works, not what you're doing. And then when the question becomes answering this stuff, like the fact that like I look at this and I go, I understand logically what you're doing, but there's concepts in here like loot box settings and loot box items and then loot and even when you're trying to figure it out yourself, it's like, is this items dot items or items dot sub, like because you're resolving the problem, which is the code doesn't match your brain's interpretation of what you're doing. You have to like fight the two and then marry them together. And
mm,
it's like you can leave everything the way it is. You don't have to go and like go on a crazy refactor. But I would say is you can walk a journey through your code with empty methods, like I did with the generate thing, so that it reads to you like a dream list of what you want. Because at the end of the day, this is somewhat a product. So when you release it to people, they're going to need to understand how to use it. And if you've got concepts, and I know you're saying they don't actually have to go this deep. The average consumer won't be like mucking around in the base of the code, but they will be effectively inquiring to the system, asking questions. And the more those questions read like English, the easier it is for people to sort of explore your code.
mhm.
So, like in my mind, a loot box should be a thing where I could say, lootbox dot add rule, and then type in something and it where this thing happens and not these, but sometimes this one, or lootbox dot add possible items, item set this where prefix is blank. Like you should be able to reason about it in such a way where you can make statements of intent into a system, and then you could say like lootbox dot roll or reroll or generate, and then it does some stuff, and it like if lootbox dot has picked some items, if how many items print, get me item, like these are the questions you want to ask, and you have all that information, but you're sort of exposing it in the form of array list counts and iterators and stuff. And for your own sanity, it's easier if you take that step back and go, can I walk my whole system with a series of if I has the thing and the thing's there and I given it the stuff and the rules and I get items, small items in the same. And if that works and you just do a little print message and go ta-da, you can just like sit back and go, right, it all works theoretically. Now I need to go in and actually put real code and jam it into the right places. And now the problem is no longer about how do I talk between the systems. It's more about where I have a place where every piece of code deserves to live. I just have to figure out the code that goes in there. Because a lot of the architectural problems come from I don't even know how to get these two things to talk because you're doing it via like public this and then circuitously whatever, but you know the questions you want to ask. Like as a person, you know those questions. So I would just say as an exercise, take that step back and just try to like mentally walk through your code base, and you will find it's kind of like this. I say this purely from experience because I originally used to write code that I would hate using, and now there's a certain level of hilarity when I write a piece of code and I say, oh, if inventory has stuff dot get me first item. It's like that's the question I always wanted to ask. Why the hell was I saying player dot inventory dot items dot index zero? Well, like, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. But like the question I wanted was give me the thing, the first thing. And I
Yeah.
realized that code doesn't have to be code like, it can read cleaner.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna get off this call. I'm going to go through the 5 steps that essentially this will take to get the final list, make those
Mm-hmm.
methods, then go to bed. And
And
tomorrow
I
after work, I will come back. I've got a live stream tomorrow at 7, I think, or 6, maybe 6 p.m. our time. So you'll probably be awake because it's 4 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Who
your
knows?
time.
Yeah, knowing me, I'll probably. Yeah, cool.
Oh,
When you
well,
do that, I'll finish my coffee because I still have my meeting now in like 2 hours now.
yes,
Is it?
1 hour.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. Right. So
Yeah, 1
I
hour.
better get the coffee drank fast.
There
Anyway,
you go.
so yeah, that was good. I just wanted that was trying to explain that in typing would have killed me. So thanks for that. It was just good
Absolutely,
to get it out.
not a problem. I'm glad we sort of have the Zoom filter figured out. Not filtered. We've been talking about filtering too much.
Yeah, it's stuck in our head.
And it's getting late. But I need to figure out this audio thing. But aside from that, I'm glad we got this figured out. All right.
Right.
Have a good one, Jason. All right. That was fun. Okay. So let me turn my volume down so I can stop hearing me and turn this crazy bright lights off. Now it feels like it's nighttime again. Brian Mystic, good night, or William Mystic, good night. And play our relaxing music again. All right. So to close the loop, generate is a good way of saying it. So start there. Generate. And loopbox generate will say loot. Thanks. Killer kill. Thank you. You got in there 15 minutes. 15 minutes to spare. I mean, the loot box is basically going to say, hey, item settings generate. I don't know if this is too, I don't know, but it's basically going to say, I'm going to do it just with it, box items, settings, item, can't type right now, loot boxes, item, settings, dot generate. It's basically going to say for each loot box set item settings that generate. So we'll just do this for now, temporarily. Generate. And on generate, it's going to say if will spawn will generate this item. And that's actually to make that clear. If not, then return. Actually. So if it will generate this item, then add item. Or generate item. And generate item. And that doesn't even matter there. It just means generate item. And this is going to say for each item on this list, generate item. And generate item is going to say if not will generate it, or if, I don't know what the best way to say it, I suppose, but what essentially I want to say is if not will generate, I want to be positive with the method will generate, then return. Otherwise, this is essentially where it would do the random picks and returning of the set values, etc. And that's it. So it would, if it doesn't return, this is the chance roll, then it returns. Otherwise, it will regenerate one item. This will generate a bunch of items, and this will generate all of those items together. That's it. And then this essentially gets you a list of items, objects, generated items equals that. So it's not much different from what we had before, but it is slightly different. And yeah, so okay, it's almost midnight. I do have, unfortunately, work tomorrow. I'm checking my work calendar, and indeed, 8 a.m. meeting. Alright, it's going to be a fine meeting. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be just a conversation, a good conversation. Ooh, and then a 9 a.m. thing. Ooh, that's going to be fiery. Alright, and then work. Like, that's after. Work, what happens between meetings. So, I'm off to bed as well. I'll be up in 7 hours and 15 minutes. Thank you for joining. Thanks again, Jason, for your help and your education. I hope everybody else learned something from this as well. And I will be streaming tomorrow night. I think I have it scheduled for 6 p.m. Pacific time, a little earlier in the evening, as it's a Friday night, and I figure might as well start early. I might end up wanting to chillax after the stream, so end early too, before I fall dead asleep. Anyways, so thank you all. Have a great day, a great night, and I'll see you later.